What do your front door, the locker at the gym, and your ex-girlfriend's heart have in common? They're all guarded by a lock. Yep, that little metal thing that we jangle in the morning, that we curse at when we're locked out at 2 a.m., and that we barely think about unless we're trying to pry it open with a butter knife. Spoiler, it never works. Welcome to What Is, the show where we take the ordinary, the everyday, the stuff you've never thought twice about, and we give it the deep dive it deserves. Today we're answering the age-old question, what is a lock? If you've ever fumbled with a key, wondered why your phone asks for a lock screen, or just want to know why the world's most boring piece of metal has its own museum, you're in the right place. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know everything from the ancient Egyptian origins of the lock to why a smart lock might be smarter than you think. Let's start with the basics. A lock is a mechanical or electronic device that secures a door, container, or object by limiting access unless a specific condition, usually a key, a combination, a code, or a biometric, is met. In plain English, it's a bouncer for your stuff. Only the right credential gets you in, and the bouncer doesn't care how charming your smile is. The word lock itself is ancient. It comes from the Old English luk, which traces back to the Proto-Germanic lukno, meaning to close. So from the very beginning, a lock was simply something that closed. Shut, sealed, made tight. It's the kind of definition that makes you realize we've been obsessed with closing things for a very, very long time. Now, if you think the lock you have on your front door is high-tech, let's take a quick trip back in time. The earliest known lock dates back to around 4000 BCE and was found in the ancient Egyptian city of Abydos. Yep, the same civilization that gave us pyramids, hieroglyphs, and a killer fashion sense for linen also gave us the first pin tumbler lock. It was a massive wooden beast, essentially a heavy door bolt with a series of wooden pins that would fall into a notch when the correct wooden key was inserted. Imagine trying to explain that to a modern locksmith. Hey, can you pick this with a toothpick? Actually, that might still work. The Romans, never ones to miss a chance to improve on everything, took the Egyptian design and ran with it. They introduced metal locks, more sophisticated pin mechanisms, and even the concept of a key that could be carried around. They also invented the lock and key combo that we still use today, albeit in a much fancier form. And yes, the Romans loved their locks almost as much as they loved their baths. Well, maybe not that much, but you get the point. Fast forward a couple of millennia, and you've got the modern pin tumbler lock that most of us use every day. It's the classic American lock, sometimes called a Yale lock after the Yale Lock Company that popularized it in the early 20th century. Inside that unassuming brass cylinder are a handful of pins, each held in place by a spring. When the right key, the one with the exact right cut, slides in, it pushes the pins to the shear line, allowing the cylinder to turn and the lock to open. It's a simple, elegant dance of metal and spring, and it's been keeping our homes safe for over a century. And hey, if you're enjoying this locktastic ride, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We've got a lot more what is goodness coming your way. But wait, there's more. In the world of locks, simple is just a starting point. Let's break down the main types you'll encounter, because knowing your padlock from your deadbolt could save you a lot of heartache and a lot of broken windows. Padlocks are the portable cousins of the fixed lock. They're the ones you see on gym lockers, storage units, and that old trunk in your attic. They come in a few flavors: keyed, where you need a physical key; combination, the classic rotating dial with numbers; and even electronic nowadays. The classic keyed padlock uses the same pin tumbler mechanism as your front door lock, just scaled down and wrapped in a hardened steel shackle. Deadbolts are the heavy hitters for residential security. Unlike a regular spring-loaded latch, a deadbolt is a solid metal bolt that slides into the door frame and can't be easily forced open by kicking or prying. They're the I mean business of locks, and they're usually paired with a regular lock for a double layer of protection. If you're serious about home security, you've got a deadbolt on your front door, and if you don't, maybe it's time to rethink that. Lever locks are a bit of a throwback, popular in Europe and older buildings. Instead of a pin tumbler, they use a set of levers that must be lifted to the correct height by a key. Think of it like a series of little gates, each with a specific height you have to clear to open the door. They're elegant, often beautiful, and a favorite of antique enthusiasts. Combination locks rely on a sequence of numbers or symbols. You've seen them on lockers, safes, and some briefcases. The mechanism is usually a set of rotating discs, or cams, that line up when the correct code is entered, releasing the bolt. They're great because you don't need a physical key, but they do require you to remember a number. And we all know how that goes. Was it 4721 or 4271? Electronic locks are the 21st century kids on the block. They use keypads, card readers, fingerprint scanners, or smartphone Bluetooth to grant access. No physical key to lose, no tiny pins to fiddle with. You just type a code, tap a card, or even just have your phone in your pocket. They're convenient, they can be remotely controlled, and they can log who entered and when. But they also bring a new set of worries, like that time your smart lock decided to glitch and you were locked out of your own house for an hour. Don't worry, we'll get to the future of locks in a bit. Smart locks take electronic locks a step further. They connect to your home Wi-Fi or Z-Wave network, letting you lock or unlock your door from anywhere using an app. Some even integrate with voice assistants, so you can say, "Hey Google, lock the front door," while you're lying in bed. They're the lock of the future, and honestly, sometimes the present. But they also come with the occasional quirky glitch, looking at you, firmware update that bricked half the locks in a neighborhood. Okay, now that we've covered the what and the who's who of locks, let's dig into how they actually work. Because let's be honest, the magic of a lock isn't in the metal, it's in the mechanics. At its core, a lock is a puzzle. The key, or code or biometric, is the solution that aligns the lock's internal parts. In a pin tumbler lock, the key has a series of cuts that correspond to the lengths of the driver pins and the key pins inside the cylinder. When you insert the correct key, each pin is pushed up to a precise point called the shear line, the imaginary line where the cylinder's interior meets its exterior. When all the pins line up at that line, the cylinder can rotate freely. That rotation moves a cam or tailpiece, which then moves the bolt, and voila, door opens. It's kind of like a music lock. Each pin is a note, and the key is the perfect melody that makes all the notes line up in harmony. Get one note wrong, and the whole thing stays stuck. That's why a badly cut key can be a nightmare. You're basically playing a wrong chord on a lock. Now here's where it gets fun. Locks aren't just about keeping people out, they can also be about letting the right people in at the right time. That's where the concept of a master key comes in. In hotels, for example, a master key can open every room, while each guest gets a key that only opens their own door. The magic behind that is a special system of pins that allows multiple keys to work the same lock, a bit like a master code that overrides the usual pin configuration. It's a real-world admin password, and it's been a staple of property management for decades. Alright, before we dive into some of the more quirky aspects of locks, let's take a quick breather. If you're liking this deep dive into the world of latches and levers, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of What Is. Because we've got a ton more fascinating topics coming up. Now let's get a little weird. Did you know there's an entire subculture built around lockpicking? No, it's not just for burglars. Lockpicking is a sport, an art, and a legitimate skill used by locksmiths, security professionals, and even hobbyists who love the puzzle. There are competitions where folks race to open locks in seconds, using nothing but a tension wrench and a pick. It's like a marathon for the mechanically inclined. The sport is called lockpicking, or sport locking, and it's surprisingly accessible. You can buy practice locks, watch tutorials, and even join online communities where members discuss techniques, tools, and the ethics of the hobby. The key, pun intended, is that lockpicking, when done responsibly and legally, is a legitimate way to learn about security and to test the robustness of locks. In many places, owning lockpicking tools isn't illegal as long as you don't use them for illicit purposes. So if you've ever been curious about what makes a lock tick, there's a whole world waiting for you. And speaking of weird, have you ever heard of lock bumping? It's a technique that uses a specially designed bump key to quickly open pin tumbler locks. The idea is that you strike the key with a mallet while applying rotational force, causing the pins to temporarily jump above the shear line, allowing the lock to turn. It's a real security concern, and it's why many modern locks now come with bump-proof features, like sidebar pins or magnetic pins that resist the technique. Now let's talk about the most iconic locks in pop culture. From movies to music, the lock has become a symbol of mystery, protection, and sometimes romance. In The Lord of the Rings, the doors of Durin are a legendary lock that only opens for the right password, Melon, which means friend in Elvish. It's one of the most famous magical doors in fiction, and it even shows up in video games and memes. In the world of music, Lock and Key is a song by the band The Fratellis, and the phrase lock, stock, and two smoking barrels is famously used in the movie Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, a nod to the phrase that means everything, originally from the Old English lock, stock, and barrel, referring to the components of a gun. And of course, there's the classic locked room mystery, a genre of fiction where a crime appears impossible because the room was locked from the inside. It's a staple of detective novels, and it plays on our fascination with locks as symbols of the impenetrable. Now, if you're wondering about the security rating of locks, you're not alone. Locks are rated based on their ability to resist different types of attacks, from simple picking to heavy-duty drilling. The most common rating system in the US is the ANSI, American National Standards Institute grading, which goes from grade 1, the toughest, to grade 3, the most basic. For residential use, a grade 2 deadbolt is usually more than sufficient, while commercial buildings often require grade 1. But here's a fun fact. Even the toughest lock can be defeated if you lose the key, break the cylinder, or forget the code. That's why many security experts recommend a layered approach. A good deadbolt, a quality lock, a smart lock for convenience, and maybe even a security camera or motion sensor. After all, a lock is only as good as the rest of your security system. Speaking of the future, let's talk about where locks are headed. Smart locks are already making waves, but the next wave is even more exciting. Biometric locks that scan your fingerprint, retinal pattern, or even your face are becoming more affordable and reliable. Imagine walking up to your front door, and it recognizes you instantly, unlocking without you even reaching for a key. Some hotels are already experimenting with mobile key systems where you check in via an app, and your phone becomes your room key, no physical card needed. There's also the rise of shared access systems, where you can grant temporary digital keys to guests, delivery personnel, or even Airbnb guests, all from an app. The key is sent instantly, and you can revoke it with a tap. It's a world where the physical key might become a relic, much like the rotary phone. But with all this convenience comes a new set of risks. Cybersecurity is now a real concern for locks that connect to the internet. A poorly secured smart lock can be hacked, and suddenly your secure door is anything but. That's why manufacturers are investing heavily in encryption, two-factor authentication, and regular firmware updates. It's a race between convenience and security, and it's one we'll be watching closely. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to appreciate the humble lock's role in our daily lives. It's the thing that keeps our homes safe, our bikes from being stolen, and our private moments. Well, private. It's a symbol of trust, a promise that what's behind the lock stays behind the lock until we decide otherwise. And in a world that often feels chaotic, there's something oddly comforting about a simple metal mechanism that does exactly what it's supposed to do. So what is a lock? It's a mechanical or electronic puzzle, a guardian of the mundane and the precious, a bridge between ancient ingenuity and future tech. It's the reason you can leave your house each morning and trust that your stuff will be there when you get back. It's a tiny piece of engineering that carries a huge weight of meaning. Thanks for joining me on this lock-filled journey. If you enjoyed unlocking the secrets of locks, make sure to check out our other What Is videos, Drop your own lock stories in the comments below. Have you ever been locked out in a funny or dramatic way? We'd love to hear them. And remember, keep locking, keep learning, and see you in the next one.